Leaders without education create bad habits. Follow me. Let's go. Hello, everybody. My name is JJ Hardy, and this is my first episode of the Leaders Lounge Live. Today, I have a guest on here, and he's a guy I see all over the place in my social circles on business, which is odd because we don't even live within 1,000 miles of one another. But he's a great guy, Jeric Sorrell. Jeric, do you want to tell people about yourself real quick?
Yeah, so when I studied business after the military, it was about like 8 years after I got out of the Marine Corps, I finished my bachelor's degree. And the thing that resonated the most with me was the triple bottom line, which is, hey, we understand that profit is important, but the people are important as well. And we need a way to make sure that the people are put at the forefront. And planet is the other part of the triple bottom line. Well, I went ham on that and wanted to really study that because people are what drives businesses. I believe that with every being in my soul. And so that's what I'm really passionate about. So I bring that to life with marketing and sales. And I help people, I basically demystify the whole sales and marketing concept by teaching people how to connect in an online world. And I love what I do. And I also, I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about how I also apply it in leadership, or how I have in the past as well, being that this is a leadership podcast. So that's me in a nutshell.
Cool, man. And by the way, if anybody is wondering if they should reach out and talk to Jeric about what he does, because I'm just going to go ahead and say that sales and marketing is probably the most painful part of starting a business. So he's worthwhile. He's got a lot of systems in place to help with that. So on this, actually real quick, before I go into it, can you tell people real quick how to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So you can find me on all the platforms at Connected with Coach J. Jay is spelled out. So Instagram is a really good place to find me. So Instagram / Connected with Coach J. Same with Facebook. Same thing. Just find me there. If you want to go to my website, it's my name spelled out, Jeric Sorrell.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks again. So today, and because he just went through this process outside of his past work experience, I kind of wanted to address hiring the best person for your team. And so before we get into any specific questions, do you want to tell us how that applies to what you've done for your business recently?
Yeah, it's been fun. So recently I did hire a personal assistant to help me out with doing my social media stuff. And so, yeah, I had to go back to the drawing board and remember, what those things were that I've learned over the years. Because I've done probably hundreds of interviews. I've probably sifted through thousands of resumes and applications for jobs. And so I am very experienced in that. But it's funny how when you're with a new organization or a new role, how everything that you learned kind of goes out the window for a minute, and it's been a little while since I've had to hire somebody. So yeah, I had to recently go back to the drawing board there. And fortunately, JJ, I had you and Jessica and Hannah in my corner, people in our network, to support me and getting my confidence back. And I made an amazing hire, a wonderful hire. I'm so thrilled. I love working with him every single day. And that's not tooting my own horn. It's just the fact that, like, if you follow a strategy, then you don't have to wonder, So that's where I am right now. Is now I'm in the process. I would say I'm still in the process of onboarding him. He's in his second week with me, but he's very experienced and really good at what he does. So it's almost like a partnership, really, more than anything. Like, I set the standard for him, but then I check in with him and I'm like, hey, how do you like this process? Is there anything you want to change? And I've made a lot of changes to the approach that we have together in our conversations. So I really do look at him as an equal, even though he works for me.
Okay. Cool. And that's an interesting perspective to know that, you may have only had one person helping you before, and then you hired on somebody new. And in your opinion, what are some of the most important qualities that you look for a candidate, especially when you have an already existing team or maybe a dynamic duo?
I don't think there's like any specific qualities that apply to everybody. Like, I really believe that you have to ask yourself, what am I looking for in this role? What am I looking for? Like, who's going to be a good fit with my organization or the team? Things like that you have to ask yourself. And as a result, the qualities are going to change. So, JJ, one thing that we've talked about in the past was I'm big on hiring on values, and skills are cool to have. Those are just a bonus, but I'm really big on the values. So for me, like, the values that I look for are that, do you take initiative? Are you enthusiastic? And are you a curious conversationalist? If you check those boxes, then there's definitely other boxes to look at. But if you can check those boxes, then I feel like you can pretty much take over the world.
That is so interesting. So a lot of people, they will dig into somebody's resume specifically for skills before they even move them through the hiring process. But values, personality, maybe their energy, all of those things are super important. So if you can come across someone that looks like they could be a fit, but you're not really sure, I agree. I've always been that way too. When I'm hiring for a position, give them a chance, have a conversation. They
Yeah.
may be a better fit than that person that has done the same job before for 20 years. Cause let's just be honest about it. I mean, that person that's been doing it for a long time, they're going to want to do it a certain way. And if you're wanting to hire on to such a small team, you're probably going to want it done a lot more your way than the way somebody else has been doing it for a long time, but still incorporating some other skills in the process. So I think that's a really smart way to do it. And
Yeah.
it also, it's hard for people to find work when they're not as experienced. And if more employers had that outlook, I think it would give a lot more opportunity to those who may not already have the skills.
Well, so don't get me wrong, a resume gets you in the door, but it doesn't get you hired. At least in from what I've experienced, right? Like, you can have a resume that is just the best resume out of all of them, but I don't really care about your resume too much. Like, that's just the thing that gets you on the phone with me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I'm gonna comb your resume. I'm gonna, look for maybe a couple skills or whatever. But again, like I said, the skills aren't that important. The phone call, that initial phone call, I've dropped 50% of people just off that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Right after combing through a resume, I mark it up. I'll drop a ton of people just off of that alone. Like, did you actually take the time to build a decent resume? Okay. Did you grammar, things like that I'm looking for. Believe it or not, it's kind of crazy that people don't take time on their resume, but they don't
That's
sometimes.
important in what you do though, because they're going to be creating copy for you. So
Well, sure, but I mean, I'm talking about anything. Like, even when I was working at the gym, I'm hiring somebody to do sales. Yeah, or mostly that's what I hired for. And so, listen, it's about how you show up. If you're not going to take the time to build a killer resume, then or more importantly, if you're gonna kind of cut corners on your resume, you're gonna cut corners at work. So anyway, that's one way to do it. But all that does is gets you on the phone.
on the
So
phone.
I pick up the phone, I call you, I'll give you a couple chances, but I'm looking for energy. Okay.
So even in sales, how did you determine whether those people were a right fit? I mean, did you consider culture? Did you consider? I mean, what were some of the considerations that you thought about?
I would say mostly culture was the number one thing. Um, you know, I I'm really big on building a culture. Like, we are not going to do this all by ourselves. We're going to do this as a team. And so I've got to consider, are you going to be a culture fit? Now, If it's just me and my business and my organization, just me and you, well, I still have to create a culture, don't I? Like there's still a culture that needs to be created. And so I have to think about, what do I want that to be like? Do I want us to be uplifting? Do I want us to be positive? What are the things that I want to build? Because I'm not looking at winning today. I'm looking at winning the next year and 5 years. And that starts with today. It starts with the person that I hire right now.
That is so true. And, the fact that you already had one person there, did you get feedback from that person, the other person on your team that was there already when you were hiring this person? Because the worst thing that you could possibly want is for somebody to come onto your team and then kind of wreck your whole operation, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I had a lot of support in hiring this person. I think everybody should.
Yes.
So yeah, the person that's been on my team, I had them on the phone interview, got their feedback a lot throughout the process. But as you know, JJ, I called you up, in the final moments, literally when I was like, because I had two very good candidates, really good candidates that I thought were amazing, and so it was a really hard decision for me to make. Looking back, the only reason that it was hard was because of the skills that each of them brought to the table, and because they had basically they were both just such a good fit for different reasons. um but yeah, I consulted with probably 5 people, in the hiring process. And this isn't for like a CEO position or anything, right? Like, I did that in the past as well. Working at the gyms, I would consult with people about my hires. It's funny how like back then, I don't know, I when I hired this time, it felt like such a big deal. And I remember hiring at the gyms, it was very just part of the routine. I was hiring so often, I guess maybe it was just I became desensitized to it possibly. But another thing that came up too was that I was always literally always interviewing anyway. And so for me it was just so normal, such a normal part of the routine. I think I developed a sense of confidence in the process that when I went to do it again this time, that I had kind of lost a little bit of.
Well, and I guess to compare and contrast, I know one thing that I've always done when I was at a different organization other than the one that I'm in right now. I'm in the process of hiring, but I haven't done it yet. But in the past, and even when bringing new people onto my team when I was in the military, you already have a set of skills that you're looking for. But when you are in a large organization, those interviews are actually kind of easy. The note taking is a little bit hard because they already understand what their values are, and they understand how to articulate that in the form of questioning so that you're interviewing these people to fit into what the entire organization's fit would be. So coming up with that on your own, man, that actually kind of had to be difficult. Were there some things that you had to consider when you were putting together your values and determining what your right cultural fit would be? And if you wouldn't mind, can you share those with the group?
I'd love to. Yeah. So I'm lucky in the sense that I'm already a coach, right? So like I'm already I'm already teaching a lot. I'm constantly teaching. So, when I talk about like showing up on social media and engaging with people on social media, I'm telling people like you, people that are students of mine, I'm telling them, hey, I need you to be enthusiastic. I need you to take initiative and reach out to people. I need you to be curious and actually really care about the person on the other end. Because if you don't do those things, then your marketing is not going to be effective. So by the time I came to hire, I already had the framework. I just had to then do it a little bit differently because now I'm interviewing. I had to write down those core values and some more things too. But then I had to create questions, open-ended questions to determine, are we aligned in this way? The reason that I smile is because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I wanted them to be open-ended, but I wanted to give people a chance to say the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really easy when you're building interview questions to be like, to set people up for success, to answer the right way. For example, if enthusiasm is important to me, one of the questions I'll write down is, or somebody else might write down would be, hey, how have you shown up enthusiastically in your work environment? Well, there's no way they can answer that the wrong way necessarily, right? Like, you ask them to tell you the answer, like you set them up. And so instead,
except for maybe if they were to say, well, I'm not enthusiastic about work.
well, believe it or not, yeah, people can throw it away, even if you set them up. Yeah. But what I'm trying to get at is I wanted to ask it in a different way, a way where they could say, no, I show up really laid back, not really enthusiastic, and so I tailor the questions, every one of them, to give them a chance to essentially say the thing that I'm not looking for as well. Does that make sense?
I like that. It's really intelligent, because if you ask such an open-ended question to where it could go both ways, you give people, you don't want to give people an opportunity to hang themselves, but you really want to know about them and whether or not they'd be a good fit. And honestly, even in an interview, sometimes people don't necessarily show their true colors, because the whole idea of going to an interview is that you're interested in what the other person has for you. So you're literally putting on your best face. And so I like that, giving them an opportunity to say the wrong thing.
Well, think about it. How many questions on interviews are literally geared to them saying exactly what you want to hear? How can you really, then you have to kind of sift through the BS. And so where my mind goes here is to Darren Bluffin, one of my favorite people that I've ever worked for, over at 24 Hour Fitness. If you're listening, Darren, hello, miss you, love you. But anyway, I remember doing an interview with him. This is a really cool story. Let me start back. I sold my company, okay, in 2013. Okay, first business I ever had, sold it after 2 years. And I decided I wanted to learn how to be a better leader, because the reason I couldn't grow my company was because I wasn't, frankly, a good leader. And so I went with the largest, fastest growing organized fitness organization in America, which was 24 Hour Fitness, privately held. And so I went to go interview there, and I was trying to get on board as a manager. I went and interviewed with Darren, who was a general manager at the time. And the interview was so laid back, I felt like I was with a friend. And so why does that matter? Well, it made me feel like I could say anything. Okay. He literally put his feet up on the desk at one point during the interview, acted like he was chewing gum, and was like, just basically, speaking on the topic of open-ended, he was giving me the chance to really be me, not to be this, hello, sir, nice to meet you, and yes, this is how I've demonstrated enthusiasm. No, he gave me a chance to lean back in my chair and be the person that I am, and frankly, walk myself out the door as a result, right? Because that's the only way he can determine if I'm full of crap or not, is if I'm being the real me. So anyway, he was definitely a master at that. It's funny, this comes full circle. I got hired in an entry-level position, immediately promoted to sales manager in a few months. But then it was about a year later that he was the person that promoted me to general manager, and I got my own gym. So it was crazy. And this was a whole different district, 100 miles away from where we all started. It was crazy how that went such full circle. But yeah, that time that we had together, where he just kind of leaned back in his chair and let me be me, that taught me a lot about the interview process.
That brings up a lot of a lot of different ways we could take this conversation, man. But you started off, how long did it take you to get from sales manager to general manager?
About a year.
Wow.
Yeah. Get this, dude. Oh man, this is fun. This was such a fun journey for me. So yeah, I got promoted to sales manager. No, it was 1 year later after getting promoted, they fired me. Okay. So I went from being sales manager to not having a job to calling my bosses or the bosses above my boss, and talking to them and saying, "Hey, why'd you guys fire me? I'm a good person. Like, I'm doing everything that I can. I'm doing what you tell me to do. Please don't let this happen. This is what I want. I want to do this for the rest of my life." Well, they said, "You know what? We're not going to give you your job back, but we'll give you a demoted job." And so for 2 months, I was an assistant sales manager at a different location. And yeah, so about 2 months later, a new district manager came in. He saw my performance for that period of time, promoted me back to my position. He said, "Where do you want to go? What do you want? I'll give it to you." I said, "I want my old job back." So he gave me my old job back. And then within another month of that, I was asked to apply for general manager. So it was like the process was it was crazy, but I didn't give up. As a matter of fact, I showed up even stronger than ever because I was demoted. But yeah, it definitely was not a clean road to get to be a general manager. I literally had to start from scratch, as the lowest of the low and work my way up, fail, and persist through that.
So interesting. So you definitely went through some ups and downs over at that job. But I have to ask, you said you went in there because you sold your company and you wanted to learn more about leadership. So what did that teach you about leadership, and and what are some things that you know now as a result of that, if you don't mind me asking? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Hey, I'm here to be put on the spot, man. Hit me. So I learned a lot about leadership. It was literally, I don't think anything can compare to what I learned. 24 Hour Fitness is a wonderful organization full of amazing people that really care about the people in their organization. So they were sending me to trainings. They gave me plenty of opportunities to learn and grow as a leader. And at the same time, they trusted me. So I mean, I was actually really shocked when they gave me my own sales team so quickly. I was like, "Are you sure? Like, can you do that? Like, there should be a period of time. Like, it should take me longer." And they're like, "No, no, we know you're the person for the job." Um, so yeah, they taught me a ton. It was a lot of really great leaders that really cared about their people. I don't know if I answered your question though.
It it's good enough. I mean, it really, the conversation's great. It doesn't really matter what's being said, but so the reason they promoted you, was it because you were a really good salesperson, or what was the reasoning behind that promotion, just out of curiosity?
Honestly, you would have to ask them.
Oh, got it.
But I would say I was I would say I prided myself on being the person who put in the hardest work. Like, I worked really hard to get what I had. So I was huge on getting referrals. So I was constantly asking for referrals, um, which not everybody wanted to do because it's awkward. So I was doing that every single day. That was part of my routine. And that's something that I learned from my leaders. Cameron Duff being one of those other people who taught me like these core elements of being successful in sales is every single day go out there and ask current gym members for referrals. And so I never let that go. And so even when I wasn't working for Cameron, when I was a sales manager, I was still telling my employees, get out there and get your referrals, earn your business, get those phone numbers, call them up. And I mean, when you look at the numbers, you can clearly see we were working harder than anybody else out there. Nobody could beat us on that. And so I was just willing to do the work that nobody else really wanted to do. Was I a good salesperson? I was. Yeah, I was good. I would say, you know, definitely as a sales manager, I did really well. We A lot of revenue. So we did really good. And then once I became a general manager, I'd say that's when I got really good at teaching people how to basically sell higher ticket fitness and things like that. Um, but yeah, I think I was just the hardest worker, if I'm being honest.
So that's a really good success story, man, because a lot of people, maybe they're a truck driver, or maybe they're, they do merchandising for a company, or whatever. They're an execution level employee, but they do a really good job, and they're very friendly in the workplace and all that stuff. And so because they're really good at their job, they get promoted. Now, do you think all of those people make the best managers, the best, business owners once they decide they're sick of that and they want to go off on their own? Do you think they make the best for those
I
fits?
think you know just as well as I do that that's not the case, because people get promoted because of their ability to be a technician, so to
Yes.
speak. So then they become a leader of others. And
Yes.
one thing that I taught people, and listen, by no means was I like the best leader, but one thing that I wanted to teach people in my charge was every single day is an interview. So if you want to have your own team, then your peers, you treat them as though, like, you teach them, you band together with them, and you act as though you're a manager. So that way I don't have to guess.
Well, and
That way, by the time I go to hire you onto a leadership position, I've already seen you act as a leader. I didn't want to guess at that. I didn't want to take somebody that was a high performer and promote them just because they were a high performer. It just doesn't make sense.
so I don't know if you realize that you said it, but back when you were talking about, when I asked you the question, why do you think they promoted you? But you were doing all of those things that you were teaching those people as a general manager when you were just a sales guy. I
Yeah.
noticed that you said that you were constantly talking to the fellow team members, telling them, make sure you ask for referrals. And, you were literally out there leading by example and pushing them to do the same things that were making you successful that you were being told to do. So you were upholding the standard as an execution level salesman. And so how amazing is that, you kept those same values, even though you got fired, demoted, promoted, and then promoted again, that you kept all of those things in mind and started teaching people those things once you got that higher level position.
Yeah. I mean, it's a basic fundamental part of operating, right? Just operating is like, you just act as if you are in the position that you want to be, and so, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it probably, part of it came from like my military experience as well, but I feel like a lot of it really did come from just the wonderful leadership I had at 24 Hour Fitness, of people just constantly reminding me, like, never letting me forget that every day is an interview. Every day you have to do these fundamental things. And it's like, as long as you check these certain boxes and you just really give it your all for these hours that you're here, well, we can't help but want to promote you. And it's like, I know that there's definitely people out there, for the people that are watching, if you're a frontline employee and you're wanting to get promoted, your peers are going to say that you're a suck up, you're a brown nose, and they're going to believe it. They're going to think that that's what you are. But the fact is, no, network with the people above you, because that's who you become. And so it's not sucking up, and it's not being, Mr. or Mrs. Perfect. It is literally that you're acting as though you're at that level. And so, if I'm a frontline employee that wants to grow, I'm not going to necessarily be buddy buddy with my peers. I'm sorry, I'm just not. I'm going to be cool with them, but I'm going to actually buddy up more closely to my mentors that are in charge of me. And it's not to suck up. It's literally to learn from them, to be more like them, to emulate them, and as a result, I can grow my career. So if you're listening, listen, follow your mentors.
Well, not only that, but following along that same vein, I was always told as a brand new leader, even back in 2007, brand new, that if you are putting yourself in the position where you're potentially the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room if you want to grow. And so you're surrounding yourself with people that you want to emulate because, yeah, it's really, really difficult to be in a conversation and feel like you're learning everything and you know nothing about what's going on. But, to have those conversations regularly and to consistently, because this is the day where, we can grab one of these things and be like, what was that guy talking about? Even though you should be asking them in the conversation, you can learn so much. And when you are constantly having to elevate yourself to a different room and be around more and more people, because let's face it, you're putting yourself in that position. It's the same thing that you're talking about, where if you want to be a manager, if you want to be a leader, you're going to surround yourself with leaders. Because if you surround yourself with execution level employees, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of those people, they're happy where they are. And that's okay. We need people in every job. But if you want to be at the next level, you have to be intentional about putting yourself to the next level. So I'm glad you said that, because all I'm doing is saying what you said, but saying it in a different way. It's just so important to make
Yeah,
sure that you're not the smartest person in the room. You want to surround yourself with your goals, not surround yourself with potentially what's going to hold you back.
exactly. So, hey, listen, forget what everybody says. Know what your path is, know where you want to go, and go there. So,
Yeah.
JJ, I'm really glad that you caught that. Um, because you kind of pulled that out of me. Why somebody would choose me as a leader. Um, but that's what it comes down to.
I've
Yeah.
done a lot of interviewing myself, buddy.
You know what you're doing.
But anyway, I think we could probably wrap this up, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Thank you for being on my show. If no one else understands this, Jeric is my first guest, and I wanted him to be on here because I feel like we have great energy with one another when we converse, and so it's just an awesome thing that you agreed to being my first guest, and thank you for being a part of this.
I appreciate it, man. It means a lot to me that you would choose me to be your first guest, and it's always a great time. I feel like I never get enough JJ, so it's always good to have some good conversation with you.
Never get enough, JJ. Gosh, you need to talk to my wife. No.
I'm gonna get a JJ bobblehead. I'm gonna have you on my desk. And then when I
Nice.
get bored or whatever, I'm gonna ping you, and you'll be like, "Hey."
Okay, you need to have a conversation with my wife across the house over here, because I don't know if she always agrees with those statements that you just said. But anyway, no, thank you for being on the show. Is there anything that you want to say that to put in a plug for you and your business before we completely cut this off?
Well, here's what I'm going to say. It's not necessarily going to start out as a plug for me. It's actually going to start out as a plug for you. If you're listening to this podcast, it's because you probably are thinking about your leadership skill set. And so there's no better way than to keep listening to podcasts like this. Be introduce yourself to JJ and leaders that are in your circle, so that way you can learn and grow and continue to evolve. And if it's social media and marketing and sales that you need support with, I would say the same thing. You need to get yourself around somebody who is familiar with that world, and learn from them. Follow them on on podcasts, do whatever you can do to just soak up all of their knowledge. So on that topic, we said at the beginning, at Connected with Coach J is where you can find me. Name is Jeric Sorrell. So you'll find me out there.
Well, and by the way, if anybody is thinking about whether or not this guy has enough oomph to be able to help them out, I think Jay is great, not just because he is good at what he does, but it really reflects a lot on him when you join his elite group and join on his Wednesday calls, because you see the type of people that want to be around him and those other people that he brings into his following. So if you even have a question, I would go to jericsorrell.com and just hit him up, just because you need to see who his audience is. That is a true reflection of who Jeric Sorrell is, or Jay. So
yeah, don't take my word for it, don't take JJ's word for it. And that's something I always tell people, like, join the communities. There's free Facebook groups that you can join and learn who's in our network.
Yep. But
thanks, JJ.
You.
It's been really cool.
Oh yeah, man. Thank you again. And thank you everybody for listening to the Leaders Lounge live podcast. And I'll see you next week.